All right, we are back for the Miami GP breakdown. It's F1 Casuals. I am here with Greg. How you doing?
What's going on, Marky boy? Good to see you.
Good to see ya. You know, I miss ya. We had not so great of a race today, but we're still going to break it down either way. Mikey couldn't join us today, unfortunately. I believe he's in Wentworth, the Valley of Snow. Not too much snow up there right now, I don't think, but good times. We'll see him probably next episode. It's just so many races right now after that month off. It's a little overwhelming, but you know, we're enjoying it.
Yeah, way better than the 3 weeks we had off. But yeah, it's coming thick and fast, and Emilia Romagna coming up pretty quick too.
I know, right? I believe it was 4 weeks off. We almost had a whole month. It's craziness.
Oh yeah,
Craziness. And I had a busy day today. It was packed full, chock full of sports. Newcastle unfortunately lost to Arsenal at 12:30. I watched that with 2 Arsenal fans. I don't know what I was doing.
That's a fool's errand, Mark. I'm sorry to tell you.
Not great. And then, of course, we had the race at 4:30 our time. The Devils played at the same time. So at one point, we had 3 screens because of the Man U game. The soccer boys wanted to watch that too. So craziness. And then I had a soccer game myself that I just finished up. So, you know, we're on it. We're all about sports. And you had just had a scouting meeting for the Portland Winterhawks. So
yeah, busy week for me coming up here. This is a nice little respite from all the hockey. We have 2 drafts, the U.S. priority draft and the regular WHL prospects draft this week. So a lot of last-minute prep and final meetings on player rankings and everything else. Anyway, enough hockey. Let's get in the race.
Enough hockey. Let's get into the race. I mean, we're just kind of stalling because it's like, well, it wasn't that great. But qualifying was fun. Qualifying was great. The stars were out in Miami. I mean, it's now the big spectacle. It's one of 3 races in the US of A now. And I think Miami and now Vegas are they're kind of those like party weekends, party tracks. Austin, still pretty big party, but not, you know, like the glitz and glamour that we saw with the paddock and the pit walk. Martin Brundle, he ran, if you remember last year, he thought Paulo Banchero, who is I think he was the rookie. He had just been drafted by the Magic in the NBA, and Martin thought he was Patrick Mahomes. Not so great. So he made a point this time to be like, I know who you are this time, Paulo. Like, don't get mad at me. But no, that was good. The Williams sisters were out. We had Jimmy Butler hanging out with Esteban Ocon. We had the 2 richest men in the world, Elon Musk with Red Bull and Jeff Bezos with McLaren. Just kind of odd, and we're going to get into this after we break down quali and the race, but it seems like so much focus is on like bringing all these celebrities in. It's like, oh, it's a big show that the race almost gets forgotten, and it ends up not being that great of a race anyways, and maybe there's more deserving tracks. You know, we talked about them in weeks past, but we'll get to that. First, we got to talk about the race, and we got to talk about qualifying.
For sure. And just kind of circling back on the celebrity side of things, great to see this many people, obviously just throwing the spotlight for the sport. But I agree with you. It does seem a little bit forced at times, maybe a little cringe even in this particular example in Miami. But
yeah,
like Vin Diesel, you already made your 15 Fast and Furious.
Oh, I forgot.
It's not amazing at this stage, you know?
It's a little, I mean, I'm pretty sure every cast member from every Fast and Furious movie that's ever happened was at that race this weekend. In fact, I don't know if that was a Sky Sports intro, like to the presentation on TV, but it was a whole like Michelle Rodriguez and Vin Diesel. Like, I was like, if they say this race is brought to you by Fast and Furious 38, I'm going to be so upset. But they didn't. But yeah, it was Vin was just in every garage, just shooting the shit. What a guy.
Racing for slips.
We racing for slips. Yeah, he should have got into the 11th car. Anyways, we'll get to that too. Oh my goodness, Greg, I almost forgot. Before we get into qualifying. Ooh, you see that? That is a white stout. That's called Inverse by Boxing Rock. I'm a little cold. It was actually a really nice day today, but I'm cold from playing soccer at night, so I need a stout to warm up that blood, you know?
You're killing me, Mark.
I know, and I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I don't know if you saw our last episode. I can't get this to you. Ooh, that's nice. That's like white chocolate almost. Ooh.
Oh, come on, man.
Ooh. Yeah. Very nice. Yeah,
But
sorry. You'll have to have someone you hear this summer.
We will drink copious amounts of reverse milkshake or whatever that's called.
Oh my gosh, right. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Well, we'll do some shoeys too. I might do a shoey soon. If New Jersey gets to the Stanley Cup Finals, I'll do a shoey. Way too many sports crossovers there. All right, we're killing it. We're killing time here. Greg's got to leave in like 40, 50 minutes because the sports don't stop. So let's get into qualifying, which was, in my opinion, I think your opinion as well, Greg, it was the most exciting part of the weekend. Thank God we didn't have a sprint race and sprint shootout. So it was just a normal 2 practice on Friday, 1 practice Saturday morning, qualifying in the afternoon, and then the race on Sunday. So everyone got their practicing in, and everyone was doing well except for one Charles Leclerc, who, bit of a theme for the weekend. He crashed, I believe was that an FP2?
Yeah.
So that was kind of looming. There was a shout out Mike who mentioned this while we were watching the race today on the group chat. The track was resurfaced. We thought that was going to be positive because the Miami, the track managers or whatever you'd call them, they said that they did this on request by the drivers. So I thought they had like taken off a layer that was just kind of making it too slick. I mean, resurfacing could be anything, but it sounds like it didn't work out for the best because the driving was a little on the edge out there, and maybe that's why Charles lost it in practice. But we went into qualifying, and the one thing that was really happening was the track evolution. And as qualifying went on, it really didn't matter who you are; you were putting times at the top. And we had some upsets. We had Lance,
foreshadowing.
I think we gotta talk about our boy Lance for a second here.
We do.
He has not been able to put it together yet. And I know he had the P4 in Australia, and we talked about that. And that was more so just not being hit and staying on track and able to finish in one piece. And out in Q1. Now, apparently, he wasn't able to put on new tires towards the end of the qualifying session. And I guess everyone or mostly everyone did. So he was still on old tires. Like I said, with the track evolution, you really wanted to get out there at the end with new tires. He didn't get that opportunity, and he was out. And that's just not a great look because Aston Martin, I mean, especially after this weekend, you could argue that is the second best car on the grid. And our Canadian boy is just not putting it together right now.
No, and that's even with the helping hand and the kind advice that we're seeing on the radio, race in, race out now from this, I don't know what we can call it, but this evolution of Fernando into, like a kind uncle. He's been hilarious on the radio, but always curious about Lance's progress. And I forget what he said today, something about, he may have saw him on a big screen coming around a corner.
Yeah.
How he was progressing in the race, like a bit of a flex, as I think Crofty might have said on the broadcast, or Martin. But it's curious to see this development with Fernando because obviously he's a hyper competitive guy, but now he's
it's really nice. Sweet. It's really it's like he's Lance's actual dad, Lawrence, is part of the team, so he's got his actual dad present, but Fernando's maybe that's like that stepdad energy. It'd be interesting to see if they were a lot more competitive with one another, if Fernando would be doing the same. Methinks not, but
probably.
You never know. It's really sweet of him. Yeah, he saw him on the big screen, I guess, making a really nice pass, which is hilarious because Fernando's doing his own race in second place, and he's looking at the fucking scoreboard, noticing what Lance was doing with a nice pass. I think that was moving from 14th to 13th. But we'll get to the race. Don't worry about that. But yeah, Lance disappointing out in Q1. So was Yuki, which that's on me. I'm going to be honest with you. I put him in my my fantasy lineup. Took Joe out, and I have bad gambling luck. I do, folks. I can't win money at the casino, and I've never really. I think I've won a fantasy league once in my entire life. So, Yuki, apologies. I'm going to take you out of my lineup next week. No, I'm probably not because he had a great race. But no, out in Q1 as well, and that's a little unfortunate. But
You know who else was out? Both of the McLarens.
Yeah. That's tough because McLaren and Mercedes, two teams after last week, you thought, okay, it looks like they're trending in the right direction. Mercedes, maybe not as much, but McLaren finding that pace more than they were at the start of the year for sure. So super unfortunate to see both of those McLarens out in. I was talking about this earlier, and sorry to go off on a tangent here, folks, but Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri are two of the best, well, young drivers, no question on the grid, but they're two of the best drivers on the grid. Like I said this in episodes past, Piastri is a potential future world champ. Like that skill is there. And Lando, no slouch himself. Like he had podiums in that McLaren before they, I don't know, went another direction with the car. So it's disappointing because both of those drivers deserve a better car. You saw Lando after qualifying being interviewed and just very dejected.
And I think he's just generally been a lot more quiet and less visible this year, which I don't think that's a good sign. And I'm going to give the spiciest take I've given yet in this iteration of the F1 Casuals podcasts. But like, I don't know how Zach Brown makes it past the midterm break, if things remain on this trajectory, because like you say, really promising last week, looked like maybe a corner had been turned, but back to square one, out in Q1. And we're going to get to the GP, folks, as Mark has alluded to, but just a shitty weekend for McLaren.
Yeah, really disappointing. I might be with you on that hot take. I think what may happen is he kind of gets all of his roles stripped behind the scenes, so he's not really calling the shots anymore by the middle of the year. So whoever is maybe going to replace him, or the board, they're making decisions for the rest of the year, going a different direction maybe, and then after the season's finished, they name a new CEO. We'll see what happens, but no question, he's on the hot seat again.
I mean, ultimately it's a disservice to two, as you say, two of the best young drivers in the sport. Really promising going into this year. Yeah, not good. Not
great at all. Shout out to Nick DeVries making it into Q2, getting that AlphaTauri in there, unlike Yuki. And Alex Albon, P11. You got to love that. But Lewis, disappointing 13th.
Is this a historic bad qualifying for Lewis?
Yeah. I forget what they said there, but it was, he's never qualified lower than 6th in the States or something like that. So not great. You got to feel bad for, 7-time world champion, just not being able to be his competitive self, just a car that's not doing it for him. And I don't know what, George had an okay race. Now, last week, Lewis had a better race. They're kind of going back and forth. I'm not sure if they're running different setups and Mercedes is still trying to figure it out. But, from a team that just dominated the 2010s,
they Red Bulled everyone.
They Red Bulled everyone. It's kind of embarrassing. They showed a camera angle of Toto at one point during the race, and you could just tell he's like, this is shit. This is not who Mercedes is. It's kind of sad. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, and Mike alluded to Lewis's dissatisfaction with the Mercedes, his car in the group chat before or during the race. He's going to expand on that, I believe, next week when he comes back.
Yeah, so next episode, Mike is on. Next Grand Prix isn't actually for 2 weeks. We've got great race at Imola. It's still on the calendar for now, a track that we really love. So we'll get Mike on, explain that, break down what's going on with Lewis. All I can think of is it's just not a competitive car, and it's probably very difficult to remain competitive mentally over the course of a season when, this isn't the first year. This is now the second year that Red Bull is dominating. Mercedes can't put it together. So, yeah, you got to feel for Lewis. But, he's got 7 championships, so it could be worse.
Could be much worse. And, I think you're right, too. The fact that they're not accumulating points like they typically do, even last season when they were struggling, you got to still accumulate those points to develop that car during the course of a season.
You got to do it. Hopefully they'll learn from their lesson. But it seems like this is another thing I was thinking about today during the race. The biggest changes really happen when it's an era change. So, Mercedes dominated the turbo hybrid era. That was after the V8s, I believe. And now it's the next kind of, I mean, they're still turbo hybrids, but the car has completely changed. So it's a new era. Now you have Red Bull dominating this era. And this would be another question for Mike to answer, actually, is, has it been like every era? Is it typically just one team that dominates it? They get it right at the beginning, and then it's so much tougher for other teams to, catch up and get it right after the fact. I mean, that's what we're seeing, as we saw in the 2010s. I guess we saw a bit more parity in the late 2000s, but then you saw Ferrari dominate the early 2000s. But something to think about for sure. We'll clear that up with Mike for next episode.
I think you're onto something there too, and I'm thinking back to like Senna's dominance, or brief dominance, unfortunately and tragically, in the Williams that he was driving with their braking system they had. So they were kind of the pioneers of that technology. I think it was banned the following years after that, but yeah, I think you're on something.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's the technology. They come up with something groundbreaking, and then, by the time the other two teams figure it out, that particular team is already ahead to their next development. So there you go. So into Q3, no Lewis, no Lance, no Yuki, of course. And we had a bit of drama because Max, early on, trying to set a time, came off on, where those S turns are, where it's a very high speed. Like, that car is just holding on for dear life on those S turns. And he was able to keep it together. He didn't crash, but he wasn't able to put a time in. And you had some trains going on, slow times, and Max goes back into the pits. And it's getting to that point where there's 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes left. And we've got Checo, Fernando, and Carlos, our top three. And then K-Mag, top four, P4. Shout out K-Mag. And I believe it was Crofty who was like, can you imagine if something happened right now? A yellow flag, who knows? And this was our grid tomorrow. And, ask for it and you shall receive it. Charles, the same S-turn that gave Max trouble earlier in the session, threw him right off. Now, there was talks that maybe this was like there's a drain there. I didn't get that confirmed or anything, but you saw Max and then you saw Charles. Obviously didn't play a role in the race, so I think it was just a case of the boys pushing it too hard. But Charles lost it into the wall, red flag, and that's the end of qualifying. And you look at that grid, and we were like, okay, this is going to be an interesting race.
Yeah, I think that was the most exciting point of the weekend, arguably, looking back now, is how that set up and played out in Q3, because you thought, look at this, look at these 10 drivers in that order. What a grid. And there was some talk too during quali about the wind. I know, like, when Charles lost the ascent vehicle there, it did look like maybe that was a factor. You couldn't see much like on the replays of trees moving or anything like that, but like it almost looked like that abetted him to shift that much to the right. But who knows?
Yeah, I did hear that, and it was a commentator saying it, and it was even the on the team radio when the drivers were complaining about losing grip. The team, well, not team principal, but the engineers were saying, it honestly might be the wind. So Miami on that ocean, that Atlantic Ocean, basically Gulf of Mexico, and there was a bit of a breeze over the weekend, and there was a bit of rain that night. But before we get into how that played a role in the race, I just want to talk about Charles for a second, because he's had a rough year. We don't need to remind anyone. He's had a lot of bad luck. It seems like a theme for
a recurring theme with Ferrari and with Charles.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't the first year either. And, he's got his sad piano song that he composed, and we were hoping, after Baku and 2 poles, a decent weekend, his first podium of the year, that he was gaining that confidence, getting it back into shape. And it seems like the opposite happened, and it showed in the race, because he really was not he didn't put together a good race at all after that unfortunate incident in the qualifying.
Yeah, and he's taken accountability for his mistakes lately, and but it's sad to hear him. He just sounds dejected, and I think it is a combination of the team strategy, the car, and just some bad luck.
Yeah, big time. I mean, and that's something we don't talk about too often in F1. We talk about the skill of the driver. We talk about the machinery, the livery, and how some are better than others. But we don't talk about that 6-inch space between these 2 years, which is a huge factor in individual sports. Now, you can argue F1 is a team sport. You do have a teammate, but at the end of the day, you're racing against them. And growing up playing tennis and, kind of playing golf and now playing golf a lot more, but for fun, but playing competitive tennis, when you're out there on your own, you don't have any teammates to back you up or rely on you if you're having a bad day, it can really pile on. I'll tell you right now.
Yeah. The wheels can come off a lot quicker, and it's harder to get it back as an individual for sure. You, Mark, I was a competitive tennis player as a youth as well.
Oh, yeah.
I played for 2 summers, and I was almost ranked one year. Insufficient data. I only usually played in 2 or 3 tournaments a summer, but I took off some of the big boys in the NSTA back in the day.
There you go. I wonder if our paths ever crossed. I'm trying to think. I don't think I've played any tournaments in the Valley, but there you go. All right, so we're going to get into the race. As we said earlier, it rained the night before, and some people were thinking that maybe it was going to rain during the race. Obviously didn't end up doing that. But tire strategy was start on those mediums, go to hard, and then maybe it's a 2-stop back on the mediums. I think it was the first top 7 were on mediums, and then Max, or top 8 were on mediums, and then Max and Bottas on hards, and then everyone else basically on mediums. And my gosh, it did not take Max long to make a serious impact climbing through. I mean, we knew he was going to do it, but he was doing it with ease on a track that's not super easy to pass on. And they lessened the DRS zones again 2 weeks in a row. I don't know if that has to do with the dominance of Red Bull, and everyone knows how much better they are they're good all around. They're better than everyone all over the place, but especially with DRS, they get an extra, 34 kilometers? Insane. So, yeah, FIA doing their very best to nuke any sort of Red Bull advantage, but to no avail because Max climbed right through that grid. He had a really nice pass. It was the old 2-for-1, crossing the finish line. I believe it was on maybe like the 9th or 10th lap on K-Mag and Charles that saw him go into 6th place. Really nice. So you had Charles and K-Mag battling in front, and then Max was like, I'm just going to, excuse me, thank you.
Yeah, under DRS, just sidestep both of them and blew past. It was awesome. Obviously, Max's dominance has been a recurring theme as well. People might be getting tired of it, Liberty Media included, but you can't take anything away from that move and ultimately the entire drive. And we're going to get into, obviously, all those details, but really clean move, really clean drive from Verstappen, showing his pedigree.
That was, he's put in so many incredible drives, but that has got to be up there. And even at the end, he even said, I absolutely destroyed that race, and it wasn't even close. So I think the question was, is he going to get past Checo? Because he's got enough pace in that Red Bull to climb through that field. 57 laps is more than enough time to do so. He only needed 14 laps, and he was hot on Checo's heels. And Checo, as I said, was on the medium starting at P1, and Max was on the hards. It became pretty clear, I think, mid-teens in terms of laps, that it was going to be a one-stop race. And if you started on the mediums, you were going on the hards. You started on those hards, you were going on the mediums. That ended up being the best strategy. Something was really cool when Max was right behind Checo. I think at that point he was 4 or 5 seconds behind. No one had made a stop yet. And I think it was Crofty was on the team radio with Christian Horner, and he was asking, what's the strategy here? What's the plan? And, saying, well, Checo's on the mediums. He's going to go to the hards and do a longer stint. Max on these hards, he's going to stay on and then switch to the mediums. And then they're like, and our computers, our simulations are telling us that they're going to battle with 3 laps to go. And I think love that. That's so cool, right?
Yeah.
So that was the kind of race it was. It was more of a focus on, and Mike said this in the group chat, more of the technical side of things, getting the strategy right. You had, obviously, the track evolution and the rain before, and thinking it was going to be a 2-stop race, but because the track was a little bit drier, only have to do it in that 1 stop. And Max didn't even, you thought that he was going to lose time on those hards after Checo pitted and went on fresher hards, but Max was putting in better times with his older hards than Checo's. And obviously the hard tire, it does take a little bit longer to get into that sweet spot. But I mean, he was ripping.
Yeah, and on the radios too, I think the consensus best tire for the track and the conditions was the hard, and that was proven for sure. Not very often that's the case in a calendar year.
Yeah, so Max pitted lap 46, and he passed Checo on lap 48. Like, it only took him 2 laps. So they were slightly off. There were 9 laps to go when they did battle. I mean, there wasn't much of a battle. Checo couldn't put up much of a fight.
They were wheel to wheel once.
It was a little wheel to wheel. Okay, you know what? Yeah, I'll give Checo the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping that Checo might get a little cowboy on him there and try to show that he's the boss, but wasn't the case.
Wasn't the case. So yeah, not the greatest of races. Bit of a DRS train throughout. You didn't have too much battling. Once again, you know, the shortened DRS zones, the track service maybe not being the best.
No
safety car. I mean, it was great because I had that soccer game at 7, and I was like, ooh, this is going to be close if we got a red flag. But no, that was an hour-and-a-half long race, one of the quickest races of the year, and maybe the quickest race of the year as we move on down the calendar. But yeah, not the greatest watch. We had a couple friends that they were watching their first Grand Prix this weekend, and I was like, yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, Max is good.
Yeah, Max is good. Red Bull is even better. And, you know, I think that really like puts to bed any chance of Checo having an opportunity to fight for that title. I mean, Max, he's such a gamer, you know?
He is. Whereas Hamilton's bread and butter was obviously skillful, tactful driver, but just didn't really make mistakes. Max doesn't really have any fear. Like, that's kind of, for me, the big difference. Like, that guy is nuts. He's so skilled, and he's got the perfect ego for somebody in a position in that car in the season. So
yeah,
good luck rest of the field.
I mean, and he's a born racer. You know what he does on his off time? Sim racing.
Oh, right?
Yeah. Like, that's it. He eats, lives, sleeps, breathes, whatever. Shits racing. Doesn't matter. He's racing.
Yeah, and this is a guy who gives the most mundane, boring, straightforward answers in interviews. You can tell that his focus is just on winning the damn thing.
Oh, that's it. I mean, he's strictly a professional. In some ways, he kind of reminds me of Sidney Crosby. You know, he's there to play hockey. He's not going to give you like a super entertaining, colorful interview. I mean, it's hockey all the time. That's it. I'm just here to win.
Yeah, I mean, the closest we came to anything controversial was his dickhead comment last weekend that was on the hot mic when he was talking to Georgie. But
yes, yeah. So, you know, there's a bit of fire once in a while. But so Max, obviously, anyone who thought that maybe Checo could put it together, because it's kind of a street race. I know it's in a parking lot, but the way, you know, the track is set up, it is similar to a street race as opposed to a regular track, but that didn't matter. And after Checo held Max off last week in Baku, it just wasn't to be. Max gets full points, and I believe he had fastest lap as well.
He did, but speaking of fastest lap, how about Nico Hülkenberg holding that down for several laps? Like, what was going on there? I don't know. I think was it right after he pitted?
I think so, but like either way, like out of nowhere, I think he was in like 130.
Oh. Yeah, he cooked.
Good for Nico. Love to see that. I mean, the Haases are having a half decent year. The Haases and the Williams are not half bad. So shout out to you boys.
Yeah, and shout out as well to Gunther and Haas for their appearance on my Instagram feed in a partnership with Chipotle. There was a lovely photo of Gunther mixing up some guacamole, I think, and K-Mag getting a bag of Chipotle handed out the window in a drive-through in his car. So, yeah, that's the content we're here for, and I want some Chipotle now.
Yeah, Gunther was quite busy this weekend in Miami. He was also DJing with an EDM DJ. He goes by the name of Griffin, so he was having a great time. Oh, we just I ordered his book, Surviving to Drive. I think I've already said that, but it's already arrived, but I don't want to unveil it yet until it actually has a spot on the table here. We might have to change sets around. We'll see what happens. But it's going to be a great read. I'm excited. We got the hardcover, hardback, baby.
And there's just no way humanly possible to read that book without hearing his voice.
I know,
in your
right?
Head. Yeah, an audiobook is fantastic.
The audio, I might just get the audiobook and read it with him saying it to me. You know what I'm saying? So your top 10, Max, of course, Champion, Sergio, Checo in P2. Our boy, Fernando, another podium. That's 4 out of 5 podiums on the year for him.
Love to see it.
Love to see it. On the other end, Lance, let's go here, my man. You've got the machinery. We know you hopefully maybe have the skill. Just do it. Maybe we need a couple wet races. George, a very nice P4. Carlos Sainz in 5th. Lewis Hamilton and Charles 6th and 7th. Charles, not a great race after starting in 6th. Dropped back a place. That's just, for a team that you thought Ferrari maybe is going to be second best car on the grid, just not having a great season at all. Shout out to the Alpines. They had both cars qualify in the top 10, and they had both cars finish the race in the top 10. Pierre in 8th and Esteban in 9th. And rounding out that 10th, K-Mag. Started 4th, still in the points. Let's go, baby.
Good weekend for Kevin Magnussen. Also love to see that. He's back.
He's back. We love K-Mag. It's a hard team to dislike with Nico and K-Mag, two fan favorites. That's for sure. So that was it. Pretty uneventful. There's many things you can say. FIA, should you be putting better tracks on the calendar, like a German track? You got the Nürburgring and you've got Hockenheim. We've gone over this before. You've got the Valencia Street Circuit. We've got Yelami. We've got Zandvoort. I think Zandvoort's on the calendar. They take it off?
Oh, strike that from the episode then, if that's the case, yeah. I
think
you're right, actually.
Well, I think they may have signed. Well, we'll look into that. We'll get fact checked on that. Someone put it in the comments if Zandvoort is maybe on the calendar, but if it's permanent, that's great because that's a fun track, bit of a roller coaster, as they say. So, look at this spectacle. It's fun, It's like the Super Bowl, the celebrities out. It's it's the big spectacle, the glitz, the glamour. The lights are on, they're shining, but here to watch a good F1 race.
Where stuff happens.
And, we haven't brought this up yet on this season, but there were talks of Spa maybe not being on the calendar anymore. Like Spa, well, first of all, it's Mikey's favorite race, so shouts to him. But and Greg's got Spa on the background there. It is a classic race. It's been around since, the beginnings of F1. It rains a lot, so that's always a lot of excitement there. But it is, the famous corner is the uphill going right, then going left. It's Radion and then into Eau Rouge. And that's got to be one of the coolest sections of track. I remember getting into it back in 2017, 2018, and seeing that on Drive to Survive, me like, holy moly, how the car's not flying off the track right now. So the fact that Spa might get taken off the calendar and we've got the Vegas Strip, and I don't want to burst anyone's bubbles before we even get one race at Vegas, but I got news for you. It's probably going to be a boring race. The track looks pretty average. So we'll see where Liberty Media goes with this. I get, the draw of celebrities. That shit's going to do well on Instagram and TikTok with the algorithms. You've got them all reposting, them at the race week. Very cool. And I guess there was talks about the race weekend not being sold out and like 30% of tickets still available a few days before, probably because you could buy a car with a paddock ticket. But they did, I think, 40,000 more fans than last year. They added more grandstands, but hey, they grew it. I think the final number was 270,000, which is
holy
crazy. So people are going out, and people like you and me are watching. So I can't hate too much.
Can confirm Zandvoort is on the calendar.
Can confirm. There we go, folks. Little detective, little sleuth work there by Greg. Before we wrap up the race recap and head into sprint to the finish line, one of the cool things this weekend and some other weekends where it's, a special race or a new race, a lot of the drivers will do a special helmet, similar to Red Bull's car livery, which was a little underwhelming. A lot of very cool helmet designs came out, and we decided to do our top 3, Greg and I. For those listening on podcast platforms, apologies. The helmets are going to pop up on YouTube, but we'll also put them on, we'll make a reel out of this on Instagram and TikTok and the YouTube shorts and Facebook. We're everywhere. And we'll pop it on there so you can see all the cool helmets. But Greg, let me know, what's your top 3?
Oh, this was pretty easy for me, I think. Number 1, I mean, the guy rocked up in like basically a spacesuit. He's a fashion icon in the sport.
I know,
general.
Right?
Lewis Hamilton's helmets are always pretty fresh, but I think this one in particular, and he's done a few of these before at, opportune times in the right moment, but I think his rainbow helmet in support of LGBTQ plus folks who are not really being treated very well by the local government in Florida, the state government there. That for me was number 1 for various reasons.
Easy pick. Easy pick, no question.
Right on point, and the motivation behind it, even better. So number 1 for Lewis. Number 2, I think Lando's beach ball helmet was pretty fresh, and a riff on his basketball helmet that he had last year. So that's safe number 3 for me. He's a pretty cool dude. Number 3, I really like Logan Sargent's Americana mixed into the Miami Vice bucket. Those are my 3.
That's a solid 3. And even if you noticed on the detail on Lando's beach ball helmet, when you grab a beach ball and it kind of deflates a bit and the lines show up, it had that. Like,
wild.
Gotta love that. That's a solid top 3. I went a slightly different direction, and I'm also going to count down. I'm going to reveal my number 1 at the end. Number 3 for me, Carlos Sainz. Very Miami Vice, very Miami Nights. You had the neon and the purples and the pinks. I thought that was very cool. Number 2, kind of the opposite. We had Miami Days with Nico Hulkenberg. I just loved the colors. It really gave me like detective vibes, like a not Miami Vice, not that kind of detective show, but more like daytime, palm trees, that sunshine. Then you got Hulk on the side. It slapped. No question about that. And my favorite of the weekend, and this was the first one I saw, Alex Albon, who, his girlfriend plays professional golf, and it was a golf ball with a little bit of grass on the bottom. And I loved it. It was just fresh. We're golfers. We love it. And that's my top 3. All right, before we get out of here, it is time for Sprint to the Finish Line. Folks, if you're not following Williams Racing on Instagram or TikTok, whatever it may be, give them a follow, because their team principal is, of course, now James Vowes, who was with Mercedes. And after every race, and sometimes in between, he does a really cool breakdown of like something that happens in the race. So when Albon at Australia, when he had that like spin out, he broke down why that happened. It was probably because of the tires and part of the track, all that. And then when Albon lost a bit, it's a lot of Albon mistakes, but when Albon lost a bit of his wing at the beginning of Baku, he was explaining how that affected his race. Just really cool from a technical point of view. And if you're trying to get more into the sport from that side of things, great follow. And his breakdowns are very straightforward, very cool. And he's British, so it's easy to listen to.
Yeah, and a really nice balance between technical and digestible. Like, they're really well cut. Yeah, kudos to Williams for putting those together, and to James for helping to grow the sport.
Yeah, love it. Williams definitely on the up and up and heading in the right direction with James at the helm. F1 23, for you gamers out there, the new trailer came out, and it looks like EA has fully taken over from Codemasters. There was no actual gameplay. It was all just a theatric trailer, so who knows what it's going to be like. I just want them to bring back classic cars. They put in last year supercars for whatever reason, and it's not Forza. It's F1. I want to drive F1 cars. And the fact that you took out the classic cars, you can't drive the 05 Renault anymore. You can't drive the 04 Ferrari, it's unfortunate. So we'll see. We'll keep you updated for you gamers out there. It's out June 15th, I believe. About a month, a little bit over a month from now. Gonna get it, obviously, whatever. But for those of you who are familiar with EA Sports, they pretty much have a monopoly on most sports games, and they tend to phone it in these days. And if you're also familiar with Ultimate Team, that is their new bread and butter. That's how they've monetized their games since it's started, I don't know, like 10 years ago. So they're probably going to take Ultimate Team to F1 somehow, and then the manager mode or career mode is going to get affected negatively. And I'm just going to go on a huge rant here. EA sucks, but you never know. Could be a good racing game. Some good news on the F1 Academy front. We kind of broke down last week that there was no broadcast for the inaugural weekend. There was also no broadcast for this weekend in Valencia. There is like 12-minute highlights of the race weekend on F1 TV that goes up several days later, but no full race. Nowhere, not on YouTube. So we're still trying to get to the bottom of that, and we've been in talks with some special guests. We might have a little panel in the next week or two on how things can be improved. We're going to send that audio directly to Liberty Media's PO box, whatever the hell it is, and hopefully they listen. But cool news here: Reese Witherspoon's production company, Hello Sunshine, is in talks with F1 to produce a docuseries surrounding F1 Academy. So that's great because Drive to Survive brought in a bunch of fans. I mean, at the end of the day, people are on Netflix. People want that drama. And if you don't have that drama on track, which, see it even in F1, you don't always get it, you can get your fix from a docuseries that may not be completely true or real, but it's still fun to watch. So I think that can only help the series. No full details on when that may be released, or even if they're shooting it right now. I think they're going to shoot for next season. But good in the sense that they're already planning to have a next season, because not broadcasting the races certainly wasn't a good sign.
And to all you trolls out there who are somehow popping up in our comment section on our social media apps, which is, I think, a sign of the times in a few ways. One, F1 Casual is gaining a little bit of momentum on the socials.
There you go.
Two, there's keyboard cowboys everywhere. So this is directly directed to you, trolleys out there. You asked, who would watch this? Well, I tell you who would watch this. These two guys, these two bearded backwards hat guys, the F1 Casuals, we're going to watch it. Young female drivers, aspiring drivers, fans of the sport, they'll watch it. I think it's been proven time and time again in today's age that the future is women's sports. And if you invest in women's sports, you give them the platform, you give them airtime, people watch. So go fuck yourselves, trolls.
Honestly. And I'd say, I was saying this before we got on the air here, it's about 90-10, 90% positive comments of people that thanking us, for saying something, and we're wondering the same. And then 10% of these little boys that don't have anything better to do with their day. And it's just, I got into it today with someone, but it's just a back and forth. But it's like, why does this bother you so much that someone other than men are finally being given a chance after, I don't know, an entire human history of sexism? I mean, it was probably not called sexism thousands of years ago, but you know what I'm saying. So it's good to see those steps taken with the docuseries. Everyone who's upset about it, go fuck yourself. First and foremost.
Go fly.
And secondly, maybe give it a try. You might just like it. So we also broke down some new details of the Brad Pitt, Lewis Hamilton F1 movie that is due out end of 2024, 2025. And we also said starting at Silverstone, they're going to be at the race weekends filming for the movie. And I was like, yeah, the racers are going to be in the background. It's going to be cool, race weekend footage, footage of the actual drivers racing. And what we didn't realize was also happening is Brad Pitt's getting in an F1 car, mind you, with an F2 chassis. And for a while, based on this ESPN F1 tweet, it seemed like Jerry Bruckheimer was entering an 11th team with Brad Pitt, and they were going to be in the race.
This seems unsafe.
I like it. Kind of got cleared up in the sense that, well, he's not actually going to be in the race. That's crazy, folks. But he's going to be on track, maybe during some practice sessions. Definitely on track during the weekend when there's other drivers at least at the race. So, I mean, I don't know. Once again, Liberty Media with their whole spectacle thing. I know this. This is a Lewis Hamilton production, so I guess from that point of view, I've got to trust in him. He's from all I can tell, he's calling the shots here, and he did comment on that. He said, we want this to be the most authentic F1 racing whatever movie of all time. And like I said, they are going to be using the technology that Top Gun used. Tom Cruise also offered his assistance if they need any stunt drivers. God love him. But yeah, I guess he's not, for anyone who was confused, they're not entering, like, Hollywood F1 racing team is not happening. I don't know why it said 11th team. I think the confusion might be that in the movie, there's going to be an 11th team, and every other team is in real life will also be in the movie. I think that's where the confusion came up. I haven't seen anything that also confirms that it's the movie that has the 11th team, but if I was a betting man, which I'm not, and you know this, that's what I would say. So, yeah, pretty funny to see that midweek when it was literally a tweet saying, Jerry Bruckheimer entering 11th team. Brad Pitt will be on the grid. Like, what? No. And lastly, everyone's favorite CEO, Stefano Domenicali. He gave us some cool news and kind of a mind-blowing stat. Get this, Greg. 1 in every 3 F1 fans have become a fan of the sport in the last 4 years. Now, I know a lot of you, and I don't know if we have that many, but the older fans, the fans that have been around for a while, I don't know if that is good news or upsetting news, because this is a sign of the times, and Liberty Media is making it more like fan friendly in the sense that it's not so much about the race and it's more about the spectacle. But either way, very cool, because the sport is growing at an astronomical rate, and the best news is that 40% of F1 fans now are female.
That is awesome news. And it's also why idiots like you and I have this platform. And there are many more of us out there doing these podcasts, surrounding the sport with all this extra online attention. And I think it's cool to see. And I'm kind of, if we go into tiers of fandom, so to speak, like between you, me, and Mike's obviously been a day one OG. I kind of waxed and waned with the popularity of the sport when Red Bull were winning tons of drivers and world championship titles with Vettel. I kind of lost interest a little bit, and then I'm back. But I mean, the catalyst for most of us who are probably listening to the podcast, and certainly for you and I, Mark, is Drive to Survive. And ultimately that's access to athletes, to the team principals, to everything that goes on. And that has been, a proven way to grow a sport. PGA obviously has jumped in. We're seeing all these various sports kind of copycatting the model of Drive to Survive, and it's hard to overstate the impact it's had on the sports. Just watch a GP any weekend. But yeah, I think ultimately it's a good thing. But the key is going to be, can they retain these viewers, these extra fans, people spending money on the sport, paying attention to it? That's going to be the real challenge going forward. But I think they're in a pretty healthy spot to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think so. And like you said, once you've captured that attention, it does come down to the product, because, someone like me who's now, this 5th year of watching F1, I've learned a lot. Now I'm like, okay, I want to see it. Good races. I don't care as much about the spectacle of the whole thing. Mind you, Drive to Survive, great series. 5 seasons in now. Crazy. But yeah, no question, good for everyone involved, everyone on the F1 content side of things, including us. All right, folks, that is it for today's episode. We may be back next week, if not, definitely in 2 weeks' time after the Remoli. That's definitely not it. Imola, that's it. It's the GP, the other one in Italy. That's not Monza. Love it. All right, folks, one more thing. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, please give us that 5-star rating. Subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. Let us know what you think of the pod, if we should cover anything else. If I need shit on us, like, you know, do I need to get call us out? Like, do I need to move to Turkey and get to hair plugs? Like, let us know. Whatever you need, we're here. Just a 5-star rating, and you comment whatever you want. If you're on YouTube, you're watching this in living color, please like this video. Smash that like button, subscribe to the podcast, and hit that bell button so you always know we're putting out new content. We're putting out new shorts every day on there. And we're also putting out Reels and TikToks and Facebook Reels on our social media channels at F1 Casuals. Please check it out. We're putting out some cool content, and we're starting to gain a little steam. So fun to see. But, Greg, until next time, it's lights out.
See you on the grid.